First impressions, Florida State falls to Clemson 34-28 here at Doak Campbell Stadium. Pat Burnham, Ariya Massoudi. It is close to midnight here in Tallahassee, Florida State. Third straight loss. A tough game for FSU. Started off hot. Had a really bad middle part of that game, especially towards the end of the second quarter and into the third. And then put together a late charge. Pat, what were the emotions and thoughts in this roller coaster game?
Well, obviously, the first thing is it's the third big game Florida State's had in a row. So, listen, it was a big game for the team. It was a big game for the program. Unfortunately, it came up short. It was a game where if you covered up the score when you look at the stat sheets tomorrow, you would swear Florida State won. They dominated just about every category, outrushed Clemson, outpassed them. But unfortunately, listen, there was about a 15-minute stretch between 8:19 in the first quarter and 7:32 in the second quarter, where this game kind of got away and forced FSU to play from behind. You had the fourth down attempt in the third quarter. You didn't make it. Now, it might have been the right thing to do. It would have been a 48-yard field goal, and obviously FSU has struggled, but Clemson converted that into 3 points. Then, of course, they chose to call timeout, get the ball back, got the ball back late in the second half, fumbled, converted to a touchdown. Then starting on the 31-yard line with the second half kickoff, Clemson scored another touchdown, and then of course FSU tried a fake punt, and Clemson was able to convert that into 3 points, and there's your 20-point difference at 34-14 when the game had been 14-14. So really those 15 minutes in game time were critical and really the difference in the ball game.
Yeah, a lot of key plays there. And you looked at me at one point in the press box, and I think it was right after the turnover, and you said, oh boy, this could be pretty big. Shipley hits the big run, gets Clemson down in the territory. DJU gets into the end zone there, and at that point, you felt like the air kind of came out of the building on the sideline, and then into the third quarter, right? And it seemed like Florida State never really truly recovered from that punch. If you look at it like boxing, Clemson threw a haymaker. FSU got a little wobbly there for a couple.
Well, it was just too big a deficit to overcome. Listen,
against that team.
Yes, against that team, one of the better defenses. And listen, hats off to Florida State. It's not all negative. I mean, listen, as Mike Norvell said in his post-game press conference, this comes down to 4 or 5 plays at the end of the game, and we just talked about several of them. But certainly the one thing that you respect about this Florida State football team, it's its ability to fight. It never gave up. And listen, Kurt was talking when we were coming down. They get that onside kick. We're in another game where they have the ball and in the game, and within obviously a touchdown of winning. But listen, disappointing. Florida State did enter this game a little bit beat up. That's not an excuse, but they did. Coach Norvell talked about Fabian Lovett not being, they tried to get him going Friday, but wasn't able to go. Jarrett Jackson did not play in this game, so Florida State's defensive line was depleted. But you got stand-up performances from Malcolm Ray and Dennis Briggs, and listen, one of those games where at the end of the day, the stats don't tell the whole story. That 15 minutes does, but a lot for Florida State to build off of. Again, close game. I know people get tired of hearing about the close games, and as Coach Norvell said, there are no moral victories, but there's still a lot to be excited about with 5 games to go.
It seemed like a lot of times, too, Florida State put a drive together only for it to end on a 4th down stop by Clemson. There was a couple times, obviously, when you look at a 6-point deficit, you look at any one of those drives, 14 plays, 70 yards doesn't end at any points. 8 plays, 66 yards doesn't end at any points. Give Clemson credit. They buckled down when they had to, but there were opportunities for Florida State, and there was a path to winning this type of game tonight in Tallahassee.
Well, listen, you put yourself behind the 8 ball by giving them a short field after the fake punt. That certainly hurt. The FSU defense did a great job of holding them to a field goal. Listen, you take the ball over on the 34-yard line or 31-yard line, whatever it is, when they took that drive, you're expecting them to get points, right? 3 points is almost a wash at that point. But yes, listen, certainly 4 or 5 plays go back into this game. Like I said, Florida State ran the ball for 206 yards against this Clemson defense that was giving up 67 yards per game. So, listen, they did not find the big plays in the pass game that we've come accustomed to. I think they had 4 for over 10 yards in the ball game. It might be a little bit more than that, but certainly they've been finding huge chunk plays in the passing game. But listen, with 206 yards, you would have thought that Florida State would have been ahead in this ball game, but certainly that, again, I can go back to it all night. That 15 minutes in the middle part of the second second quarter and the third quarter really told the story.
It really does. And again, Florida State gets some yards there late, finds some touchdowns. What does that do? Obviously, Norvell in the press conference wasn't looking for moral victories, but you have to believe there are teaching moments in that. And when you go to the film room, stuff to build on against arguably the best defense and some of the best talent you were going to face all season long.
Well, yeah, we heard Derek McClendon. You know, they're obviously down, as you are when you work so hard and come up short. But listen, Derek McClendon talked. It's about us executing, and you see some of that in some of the plays we're talking about. And again, they went toe to toe with the fourth-ranked team in the country for most of this game. And you know, listen, this team fights. It fights hard, and it tries to overcome whatever deficit it's put itself in or gets put in.
Yeah, we're seeing the improvements in the foundation of this program. A question for you: were you surprised with the success FSU had on the run game? And I know we've been talking about it for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
At times they go away from that running game where FSU, I look down, 6 yards a pop. Benson's averaging 9 yards a pop. Did you want to see them try and stay the emphasis of rushing?
Well, I think that they probably would have had they not gotten down 34-14. I think that kind of changed what Mike Norvell and his offensive staff had to do. They were still pretty much 50-50, but they've been a little bit more than 50% run in the first half. But yes, you know, we've been asking, where's this run game? You know, we saw it early in the year, did not see it against NC State so much, or really against Wake Forest, and to do it against Clemson. For this offensive line's got to be something they can build off of. For this offense, it's got to be something they can build off of. And then going back to some of the adverse situations the defense was put in with the kickoff return down to the 30 and the fake punt, you know, they fought, and you know, they outperformed Clemson in a lot of areas statistically, but unfortunately that's not where the number that counts most is.
Let's touch on a couple more things before we wrap up here. It's getting late at Doak. You're the quarterback of Florida State. We're going to talk about you, Jordan Travis, week in, week out. He has the spotlight on him. It seemed like tonight a mixed bag. He showed his toughness. He showed his ability to run the football, the athleticism. But in between at times, Clemson was able to find some success in third and long situations and making him uncomfortable.
Yeah, listen, Florida State was 7 of 16 on third and fourth down. I believe it was about 5 of 11 on third down. I could be wrong about that, but it's somewhere around 50, a little bit less than 50%. But yeah, certainly they did not convert. They did well enough. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like last week where we saw them really struggle on third down, particularly in the second half. But listen, Jordan has played and his team has played against two of the better defenses in the conference, if not college football. You are going to struggle from time to time. You are going to have to go through adversity. They did depend on him a little bit more in the run game. I think he was a leading rusher from an attempt standpoint. Now obviously not all those were design runs. I think he had 14 for the game. Some of them were big runs, like the last scoring drive. He had a huge run. But, you know, listen, you know, they threw the ball fairly well. I think he's around 57% completion rate for the game. You would like to see that a little higher against this particular defense. They did struggle against the pass coming into this game, but they were healthier than they have been in the secondary. And of course, you know, listen, they were able to get some pressures on Jordan, and but the offensive line held up for the most part. And listen, you know, just not enough, you know, one play here or there, whether it's a big play in the pass game, a big run, and obviously, you know, you don't give up a big play on special teams. You don't give up the 3 points after the punt. You know, all those things factored into it, and Clemson took advantage of the short field when it had it twice, 10 points off short fields, and you know, at the end of the day, in a 6-point game, you know, that's the difference. But you know, listen, they'll have better days moving forward. This team needs an off week, which they get before they bring back Georgia Tech. And Mike alluded to it in his post game that, you know, this is, and even Derek McClendon said, you know, this team is banged up right now, as most teams are, 7 weeks after a 7-week run, and especially when you played your 3 most physical games back to back to back.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Clemson made the plays when they had to make them. I think that toughness showed for Dabo's team, and the program that he's built. Shipley was incredible, as he is week in and week out. But if you had told me going in, by the way, that FSU would have an onside kick opportunity to go for the win,
not at 7 minutes and 12 seconds in the third quarter.
You would have been like, are you kidding me? So I know there have been some tweets, and I've seen some comments on, Clemson went into this prevent defense and didn't care anymore. Different story if FSU gets the kick. And
I can assure you the coaches on the other side cared about what was going on the field. And, they were not making calls to allow FSU to score to make it a one-score game.
So
that's just overreaction.
For sure. After the bye week, Florida State has 5 winnable games.
Yeah.
I think perspective really important for all of us here. We said we would take 7 wins this season if the Noles could get it. It seems like they're going to have an opportunity for even more than that.
Yeah, listen, you get a Georgia Tech team who you think you'd be favored in front of. Now, obviously, Georgia Tech, ironically, is playing the best ball of the season, the last 3 weeks. Like, I don't know, interim head coach. Then you got 2 tough road games. Obviously, you go to Miami, rivalry game, right? Miami struggled this year. They struggled with Virginia Tech today, but that's a game. As we talk about, anything can happen. It usually does in those games. We've seen it throughout the history of the rivalry. But again, a game that you would think FSU would be favored in. Miami has struggled offensively and defensively. And then you go probably the game no one was really worried about before we ended the season. Then you go to Syracuse. And Syracuse is having quite a year. They are a ranked team. They got a big game against Clemson for first place in the ACC Atlantic next week. And then, of course, you finish off the season with Louisiana, who you should be substantial favorite over. And then you get the Gators at home on a Friday night. But to your point, Ariya, yes, this team has a lot to play for. This season is far from over, despite the 3-game losing streak.
All right, let's get to the bye week. Let's get healthy, and let's get right back out there. Pat, great stuff from you. Seminole Sidelines, Sunday night. You ready for it?
I'm ready for it. 6 p.m.
We got Mark Salva, Charlie Ward. 2 names you definitely want to tune into to hear. So we're going to sign off for now. We've got a lot of work to do here late as Saturday turns into Sunday. And we thank you guys so much for watching here on the Osceola's YouTube page. For Pat Burnham, I'm Ariya Massoudi. We'll talk to you tomorrow.